Aloha and welcome to Connection to the Cosmos with your host, me, Dr. Lisa Thompson, where I have out-of-this-world conversations with extraordinary people. Today, I am so excited to have on my guest, Sheila Seppi. We're going to bring her on in just a moment, but first, just a few announcements. If you have not had the opportunity to grab my free 20-minute meditative journey to meet your galactic family and guides, make sure you do that at my website, mysticmanta.com or drlisajthompson.com. Also, February 22nd and 23rd next year, I will be leading my Galactic Ascension Channel certification program for those who want to expand your healing practices. That'll be held on Zoom. And then April 30th to May 4th, I am leading my very deep dive galactic retreat where you will connect with your galactic family and guides in a whole different way than you've probably ever experienced. All that information is on my website, mysticmanta.com, drlisajthompson.com. And then if you are coming to Hawaii, specifically to the Big Island, Kona side, then come on one of my Big Island UFO tours where you will see the night sky in a whole new way using my Generation 3 military night vision goggles. Okay, so without further ado, we are going to bring on Sheila. Hello, Sheila.
Hi, how are you? I want to come and look through your goggles.
I know. You need to, after today, after our conversation, yeah, I think we're going to be really good friends.
Oh, I think so. It'll be so fun.
Okay, so let me read your bio so people understand. Like, I'm really excited for you to be here. So, Sheila Seppi is a celebrated author, international speaker, podcast host, holographic alchemist, light language linguist, multidimensional life coach, regression therapist, shamanic practitioner, and spiritual teacher. She collaborates with her collective team of Arcturian, Angelic, and Andromedan aspects to activate healing on body, mind, and spirit levels. As a channel for Andromedan Elder Mother Tiamu, did I say that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and other light language beings, Sheila facilitates profound transformations and brings messages of hope through her work. A soul exchange walk-in, she entered the body of a 38-year-old mother with 3 children, experiencing instantaneous healing from documented illnesses and acquiring new spiritual gifts and memories she had never previously known. Her life was dramatically altered, marking the beginning of a new chapter filled with extraordinary spiritual insights. Okay, and then there's a whole bunch more, which we'll talk about. And you have a new book that just came out. You have another book. Your other book is Walk-ins, Cosmology of the Soul, and then Cosmic Convergence, Journeys of Walk-ins, Starseeds, and Hybrids. So that's the new one, right?
Yes.
Yes. So people are going to be like, okay, number one, what's a walk-in? But we're going to start from the beginning. How did you grow up? Spiritual, religious, or something else? So that we understand the journey of how you became this galactic being.
Well, I was a very in-the-box religious person.
Okay.
I stepped outside of it. I had never read a metaphysical book. I did not believe in past lives. I did not believe in reincarnation. I didn't know if there were galactic beings or not, but I didn't put any thought into that whatsoever. And so needless to say, I was very limited in my cosmological education. And not only had I never read a metaphysical book, I had never read anything outside the scope of what you would say, like, middle America down the streamline. So as a mother, I was progressively getting sicker and sicker and sicker and sicker. And for about a period of, I guess it really started in my 20s. I started being diagnosed with all types of issues. And even up until the time I became a walk-in, I'd been diagnosed with like bone cancer, brain tumors, fibromyalgia. I used to walk with a cane. I had erythema nodosum. I had the beginning stages of multiple sclerosis and, rheumatoid arthritis. Celebrex was my best friend because it literally gave me a little bit of mobility. And like I said, I had 3 kids. So I was working this really demanding job. I was married, a very dysfunctional marriage, by the way. And I didn't have any extra energy to do anything with the kids. So it was like, oh, how do we play? They play in the floor and I watch them. Or I reach down, I'm playing Barbies, or, I could sit in the floor for a little while, but I was exhausted all the time. And needless to say, I just kept getting more and more depressed. And that's when the walk-in event occurred.
Okay. Wow. So that's a lot of illness for sure. And so were you at a point where you were like, help? Did you ask for help, or did it just happen? Because tell me how the walk-in experience happened. And then for those who don't understand what a walk-in is, what that means.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, I do remember one time my husband and I, we had actually put a trailer on the property that we had because we were building a home and we didn't want to rent someplace. So, so anyway, we put up a little mobile home back behind where we were building this huge home, and it was beautiful. And I remember sitting in the corner of what would have been the kitchen. And it's just like, I just can't keep going on this way. I'm done. And it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to commit suicide, or, oh, I need some type of outside intervention. It was just one of those things that it was just like one of those days. It's like, I'm done for. I just can't keep going this way. That's the only thing that has ever come to mind that could possibly have been a cry out of the soul. Now I'm going to explain that, because I went to bed with this type of mindset. And the next morning, and it seemed like it was 7:00 in the morning. I don't know why that time just sticks in my head, but it was as if someone reached down, grabbed me by the hair of the head, and just pulled me bolt right up in bed. And then it was like lightning ran through my body. And then I was in white space. And I don't know how long I was in white space. I don't know if I was having a near-death experience. I don't know what that was, but I know I was in white space. And for the first time in many, many years, I just felt this unconditional love just washing through me. I was totally out of pain and very much at peace. And if I had the opportunity, I would have probably stayed there. But the next thing that I knew, my peripheral vision was coming in, and then my frontal vision was coming in. And then I'm sitting in this room looking around going, what the heck just happened? Number one, why am I sitting up in bed? Number two, why do I feel so weird? And everything was the same, but everything felt so different. And I didn't know how different. When I got out of the bed and I started walking across the carpet, it was almost as if I had never felt carpet underneath my feet. And it was kind of like, ooh, this is gushy. I like this kind of thing. And then I caught my reflection in the mirror, and I just stopped and stared at myself. Because it was like I was looking at myself out of somebody else's eyes, and looking at my teeth, I'm looking at my hair going, oh, what's going on here? All these kind of strange things. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking, what the heck is going on with you? Why are you acting so strange? But I was just compelled to do these things. Then all of a sudden, I had past life memories just flooding my body. And if you'll remember, I didn't believe in past lives. Right. I was a firm believer, very religious in my, beliefs that, you lived a good life, you died, you either went to heaven and hell, and that was about the extent of it. Okay. Mm-hmm. But all of a sudden I'm having these memories, which I did not know were the memories of this body being activated, which we can talk about because that's the cellular memories. But I also started having all kinds of information about universal truths, which I do write about in Cosmic Convergence, because all of a sudden I'm having information about timelines. I didn't even know what a timeline was. I didn't even know what a dimension was or a density. I didn't know any of that. But it's flooding my mind. And then the other thing is I started remembering healing modalities that I had never studied. And the next thing was, okay, I'm freaking out. I don't know what's going on. Maybe I'm dreaming, I don't know what's happening. But as I started to walk through the house, I picked things up, and I remember holding this cube that was in the kids' room. And it was like a wooden cube. And I'm like, this is the most amazing thing ever. And then I'm feeling texture. And I thought, okay, I'm freaking out here. I don't know what's going on. Now, I had just enough psychology to start diagnosing myself. So the first thing is I thought I was having a psychotic break. And then I thought I was having a dissociative disorder because I didn't remember anything about my life except for I knew I had children. I knew I was married, and I knew I had parents, and I had an immediate love for my kids and for my parents. And that was about it. I didn't have all of the memories. So I thought, oh my God, I must be having a trauma response. What's happened to me? At least I knew what my name was, because I had no idea what was going on. And I was in this state for about 3 to 6 months.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. I tried to go through life as normal, tried to be really cool about everything. But all of a sudden, I'm married to this person I have no resonance with. It was already a dysfunctional marriage. So that was easy. Within 3 months, I left that marriage, and I'm like, you can have the house, you can have whatever's here, you can have the farm. It was a beautiful farm on 52 acres, gorgeous sunrise and sets, and had the little creek and all that stuff. And it's like, I don't care. I'm taking my children and I'm out of here. And that's what I did. I just left. And my mom had talked with me because she thought I was having a psychotic break. And she thought I had the beginning phases of Alzheimer's because I didn't remember a lot of things. I had gone to a funeral, and I had high school friends and, apparently best friends coming up to me. Had no clue who they were. But I was very good at deflecting it. Where I thought I was, but my mom recognized. And she also heard a couple people say, you don't have any idea who I am, do you? And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I did, kind of thing. But I didn't know who these people were. And I had no identification with them whatsoever. And so within the next 3 months, I accepted a new position in another state. And that's when I found my first spiritual teacher, because she also was a spiritual counselor. And I went to see her. She introduced the ideas of walk-ins, which freaked me out because I went to her for the blue pill. Remember, I was in the Western Medicine Society, and I wanted to go back to being the dysfunctional me that I knew. I didn't know what to do when I was feeling good and had all this energy, and why did this happen, and all of this information, where did it come from? And so she also happened to be a Hopi elder. And I began to sit in what's called the women's circles, where she was teaching some of the basic Native American philosophies, shamanism. And that is where I really began to anchor into the body, because through the shamanic journey, I was able to go into the lower world and the upper world and the middle world. It's like, wow, this is so cool. And I had no idea what I was doing, but it was just like that for me. But I met my spirit team, and that's where they began to talk to me, and they began to tell me who I was. And of course, one of the first questions I had is like, am I a body snatcher? Because walk-in, what do you mean? Because my understanding is one soul out and another soul in. And in my limited perspective, I thought maybe I'd kick the soul out because it was sick. But in fact, the soul of this body had cried out to be released. And that cry was heard by my collective, who was working on the crystalline grid. And it was decided I would be the aspect to come in to be boots on the ground. And so, then I discovered, a walk-in, one soul out, another soul in. But as I began to integrate more and more, and as I began to raise my children and have a little bit more time to dedicate on, what's really happening to me, then I began to meet other people, to go to meetings where I'd heard that there were walk-ins, because as far as I knew, I was the only one here on the planet. I felt like I'd been dumped here. I had no support. So remember, 25 years ago, we barely had the internet.
Right.
And there was definitely nothing about walk-ins on the internet, I can assure you, And so I felt like I was by myself until I really wrote that first book, Walk-ins. Now, that was like 5 years ago, believe it or not.
Okay.
But I had been attending meetings and I'd heard about other people that were walk-ins. When I talked to them, it was like their experience was nothing like mine. And I'm like, well, what's wrong with me? Why did I have that experience? Because this one sounds like that one, and this one sounds like that one, but nobody sounds like mine. But then I really understood that every individual who has a walk-in experience experiences it differently. And most people do not have the remembrance of when that soul enters and when the soul leaves, because in working with my collective, I understood that when I was propelled bolt right up in my bed, that's when the new soul came in through the top of the head and it propelled the old soul out. Now, that's not the way that it typically happens, because, a soul will typically leave through the top of the head, or it does end up coming out of the heart space. So, to have it propelled out was something totally different. But I'll stop there and let you ask some questions, because I could keep talking about this forever.
Oh my gosh. No, I want you. This is fascinating. It's so many levels. So then, okay, so you left your husband, you've got these kids you're raising, you're going to these circles. So then, like, what part of this process did you finally embrace and start actually getting trained, or, in regression and the other things that you do? Because, for me, like, not that I'm a walk-in, but it was later in my life when I decided, okay, I need to completely change my life, leave my husband, and go on this spiritual path where I'm doing the work, and learning things and allowing things to come in. So,
right.
Yeah. So for you again, and I grew up with this, though. Like, I grew up with all this being normal, and you didn't. So I'm just super curious, like, yeah, when did you start doing the training then?
Okay. So immediately within 6 months, I started studying about shamanism, and I started learning about that. Then my son had developed asthma, and so I began to seek alternative methods, because immediately I moved out of the Western medicine model. First off, I was instantaneously healed and didn't need it.
Okay.
Number one.
Beautiful, because you had all these diagnoses.
Yes,
right?
yes. And then number two, my son was sick. So then I found a Reiki master. Someone had told me about her. Then she came to one of the circles that I was in. I called her, I sat with her, and then I just loved that modality. But initially I learned that so I could calm my son's breathing to give me enough time to get to the hospital for him, because he had turned blue in my arms. I cannot tell you how many times.
Wow.
That was scary.
Yeah.
Of course, now he doesn't have asthma, and very soon after that, he lost all symptoms. But so that's the first modality that I learned. Then within about 4 years of being a walk-in, coming into the body. So I came in September the 23rd, 1999. So then I was by myself until 2004. Okay. And that's when I met my current husband. And immediately I told him I had children. I told him I was a walk-in, and I thought, well, if this doesn't push him away, okay, we'll have a second dinner, and of course now we're married. But when I met him, he was very enthralled in all of this. And he was super supportive. Now, I didn't at that time, I mean, there was no way I could wrap my brain around it, because first off, there was new neurological pathways that was beginning to develop in my brain that would allow me to hold more energy. There was also new etheric pathways being developed within my holographic grids and within the spiritual bodies, as well as within the physical body, to allow me to hold higher and more frequencies. Okay. And so all of this is going on. As this is happening, I'm learning about shamanism. I'm anchoring into the body. I found out that all those people walking around and all those people talking to me, I was not psychotic. This was my spirit guides. And I had become clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient all at one time. Didn't believe in that either.
Okay.
And when everything opens up at once and you're walking around and you have no knowledge about what's going on, you're going to think that, you're a little off base here.
Yeah.
And so I found that if I listened to those voices, or if the people that were talking to me, if I listened to them, everything started to unfold in a beautiful, organic manner. And so that's what I started to do. It was a trial and error thing. Do I trust these people? Do I not? And then when I started doing the shamanic journey to find out that these are my guides, this is my spirit team. And it wasn't, when we enter into a physical body, we incarnate from somewhere. And there are certain types of souls that enter the body. Well, the soul that came into me was part of a collective that I am still connected to. And this collective was a seventh density collective. We were already in pure consciousness, and we were in the Andromedan system, and we were observing literally this massive invasion that was coming in. It was AI technology coming into the backside, and there were craft there that had stopped that. And that's what we're observing when all of a sudden we start feeling this call that's moving us back. And the next thing that we knew, we were in the earth realm. Okay. And we then merged our consciousness with other consciousnesses, and we were all working on the crystalline grid. Now, this happened back in the 80s. So here we are on the crystalline grid. We're doing repair work because the piezoelectric field that was sending in the separation codes, the lack codes, all of that, it was knocked down. So that's no longer happening. However, the problem is humanity has walked in that frequencies for so many years, it's permeated our DNA. Yeah. So now our ancestral lineage also carries separation, lack, fear frequencies, okay? But we were trying to do the repair work to the grid. That's when the soul of this body cried out to be released, and it was decided instantaneously that I would be the aspect that came in. And it took me, first off, to learn I was a walk-in, and then to understand that process. It's like my little pea brain had a hard time wrapping around those concepts, okay? Remember, they're building a new neurological network to allow me to do that, because I had such, you talk about being in a trench. My brain and my behavior was so ingrained in me. And then I had an hypnotic regression session with Barbara Lamb. Okay. And in that session, I learned one of the things that they said, because my soul came through and was talking much like in the Dolores Cannon QHHT, which then I became a practitioner of. But anyway, they were talking and they said, if we can change her, there's hope for humanity. And I thought, well, that doesn't make me feel very good. But they were talking about the imprinting and being able to overcome the behavioral patterns that were already preset, which in the most part, I have been able to do that. And so I feel like I came in with a very strong mission, like most of us, and probably everybody listening to this came in
Mhm.
with a very strong mission to be a way shower.
Yeah.
Okay. Most all of us are doing that. We're doing our part. We're holding frequencies. We're anchoring. We're sending light codes. We're doing all of that work. It just happens my soul came in to the body of a 38-year-old woman, and I came in with a mission very much intact. So I remember one time I was complaining to my collective. I was like, oh, I really need a vacation. I need a break. I just can't keep doing it this pace. And they're like, you think you're there on vacation? No, you're there with a mission. And they were very firm about, you stay the course. This is what you do. You need revitalization? No problem. We'll revitalize you. And that's kind of been the reciprocal agreement that we've had the entire time that I've been here.
Okay. So now with your kids, I'm just curious because I have an 18-year-old and a 16-year-old, and my kids, they have moments of thinking mom is crazy, and then other times, oh my God, mom is so the coolest ever, and thank you for being
Mhm.
E so I can be ET. So
Mhm.
I'm just curious from a mom perspective, like how your kids are doing with all of this.
Well, when I first came in, they were 3, 6, and 12.
Okay.
Okay. And so all of a sudden, they went from having this crabby old mom that was always in pain to having this energetic person that wanted to run and play and do and go to the park and take them to amusement parks and go swimming. So they were thrilled. Growing up, I don't even remember when I told them that I was a walk in, but they were like, well, that makes sense to me. That was it, you know, and that was it. So they have always embraced that idea. Now, I think sometimes now that they're adults, my youngest is 28 and then 30 and 36, and, I think sometimes as adults, it's like, just kind of, keep it down, mom. Don't,
Yeah.
don't overdo. So they're a little bit more, I mean, although they're 100% accepting, and my family, everybody's accepting, but yeah, I just behave when I'm around their friends.
That's
Yes, yes. I wish I could say, "Oh, I could walk through walls." You want to see that? But I'm working on that one because I know we can raise our
yeah.
vibrational frequency to do those kinds of things and so much more. And everyone can do that, not just because I'm a walk-in. We all have those abilities within us, and we all have the abilities to overcome those ancestral lineages, to overcome those epigenetics of our soul that we brought in that then have merged to make this human template that we're in. We all possess those abilities. We just have to remember that.
Yes, absolutely. And that's something that I have been working on in my own lineage. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a tough one.
it can be. So, okay. So with you work with a lot of different groups like I do.
Mhm.
And so tell me more about that, like how you work with your team and you as being this walk-in, like, yeah. What do you do out in the world?
Okay. So within 4 years, well, when I first came in and I moved to Kentucky, it was because I accepted a job working in a congressional pork project, for a lack of better terms. And I was in the political arena for about 5 years.
Okay.
And I know that I was guided, guarded, and protected to be there because it was providing a good opportunity to raise my children. It was providing me the financial resources that I needed to take classes and to learn things. And so during that 5 years, I had become a Reiki master. I had studied with Sandra Ingerman with soul retrieval. I had taken a lot of different shamanic classes and courses to really, deepen what I already knew to be true. And then for me, it was more like taking all these classes was a validation. It's like, okay, I'm not crazy. I know that. Okay, yes, I'm not crazy. Okay, they're saying that too. Great. I love it, you know. And so I took the courses more as a way to validate the experiences that I was having as to acquire the knowledge. Okay, so that was the first thing. Also, during that phase, I had met my husband within a year. We were married. We'd met at a meeting, and 6 weeks later, he came to visit. In less than a year, we got married. And for those first 2 years, I continued to stay where I was in my job because the kids had a great job and we were here in the summertime, and then he was back there in the fall. So our situation was okay. But as far as what we needed as a family, it wasn't. So within the 2 years of being married, we moved full to Colorado, which is where my husband was from.
Okay.
And when I came here, it's like, oh, okay, I'll just get a job. But I could not work in corporate world again. I just couldn't. So, oh, wait a minute, it's 12 o'clock. I've got to go say my midday prayers. Oh, I've got to go. No, I'm sorry. I'm going to be late for that meeting. I have to meditate this morning. That doesn't go over very well in corporate America, But I had promised myself there were certain non-negotiables that I was going to have in my life. And so that put me out of work. And so, I decided, hey, I just need to be an entrepreneur. So I opened up my own business. At first, I was providing healing services, not just Reiki, but the own healing energies that came from me. I was providing, psychic readings to people. I was the woo-woo place that people kind of walked around, and I even had someone from the newspaper to come and say, honey, if you're going to make it in this town, you're going to have to tone it down, because at that time we only had about 2,500 people here. And so it's a very small community. And so even as much as I was learning and expanding during that time, I also was learning, maybe I can't talk about this the way that I need to talk about it. But I continued. So that put me in a position of continuing to learn as I was growing my business. And all this while, I'm still studying with my collective. I'm still receiving information from them. And at the same time, they continue to say, well, you're a way shower. You're to pave the way. You're to do this and that. Well, I thought they literally meant me doing it. So I had this huge mental thing on me, like, oh my God, I've got to perform more. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. So I started studying everything that I could, all these various healing modalities. I had my own healing business, which then grew and expanded. I was working almost 7 days a week. I was bringing speakers in. I was having events. I brought in other practitioners, and it literally almost killed me. And it was during that time that I don't know, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. Oh, I don't have to do everything, but maybe I can coordinate other people. And so then I started with my coordination efforts and working with a lot of different groups and trying to bring everybody together, kind of like a little mother hen kind of gathering the chickadees. And then they told me that I had to write my first book. And they said, you have to tell your story. And I'm like, number one, I'm not an author. Number two, nobody's going to believe this because I'm having a hard enough time believing it myself. And number three, nobody's going to buy this book. Or, and so they're like, you're going to write this book. So I did, and doors opened. Interviews came left and right, and I chose 15 of those to put in my first book, Walk-ins, Cosmology of the Soul. And I had 15 other walk-ins who, when I started interviewing them, showed me the magnitude of the walk-in arena. And then I began to understand that maybe the truest sense of walk-in is the soul exchange, one soul out and another soul in. But there were many, many types of soul experiences that were happening, like a soul infusion, where a portion of a person's soul would leave, but more and more of their higher self or oversoul aspects were coming in. Now, I do have to say, right now, I find that's happening with the general population.
Okay. Yeah.
You don't
I
have
read
to be
something about
walk-in for that to happen. You
Yeah.
know, people are doing their work. They're raising the vibrational frequency and they're able to hold higher frequencies. So then that just becomes an augmentation and not a replacement. Okay.
Right.
And
Yes.
then there were like soul mergers where, you know, souls fused together. There were jumpers of souls that would come in and out and really, you know, bring in these massive downloads to people. They would impart that information and then they would leave. And then these people explained to me that that was probably some of the hardest times because they really missed that energetic exchange or frequency, but they were very much aware that something was going on.
Hmm.
And there's like the soul overlays, which you have your original soul, which is called the natal soul. You have another aspect of the soul that comes in, and it can either attach permanently or it can attach, serve as a battery charger and leave. And at first I thought, well, maybe that's the type of soul I am because my soul was weary. And my team was like, no, you are a completely different soul exchange. I wasn't even from the same soul family. I wasn't even from the same soul group. But as you know, as we climb that ladder back in the ascension process to source, we're all part
Yeah.
of the same master oversoul. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I talk about that, the ascension process and the various layers in the book too. So if people, you know, are curious about it, I even put this really cool graph in there. But then there were these other souls called step downs, which I found were step ins. I found those to be some of the most fascinating because it was a soul exchange experience, but they weren't here for life. It was a temporary exchange. And then another soul would come in and the person would have to integrate that. Then it would leave and another soul would come in or a couple souls at once. And I'm like, you know, I had a hard enough time with my one soul. I don't know how you guys are managing that. But each soul brought in different coping mechanisms to allow that person to handle the frequency. So hats off if any of you guys out there are soul step downs, because you have to have gone through, you know, a tremendous integration process. Then there's the one that's really interesting. That's like the soul projections. And that's when you have an extraterrestrial that's off planet that's actually projecting a soul essence into a body because the other original soul left. But they're like kind of in a stasis. So it's like, oh, this is an opportunity to come in to help, to be hands-on, but not have to go through the birth process either. And that's what was really cool for me because I got to come into an adult form. And I got to hit the ground running as opposed to going through adolescence and all of those types of things. Then everybody's probably heard of the soul braids. That's where you have the two souls that can intertwine with each other, but they have like this symbiotic relationship. So they act as a single unit, and then there's soul layering. And that is interesting because when a soul is born and it's anchored, it brings in separate aspects of itself. And through life, you'll have one aspect that comes to the forefront, and then it goes back in another aspect that'll come to the forefront. So it's kind of like, you know, this dance of the souls that happen. And when I heard about all of those, it made total sense to me that we were all having a soul experience. And most people call all of that walk-ins because there's not another category for it. But I call them all soul experiences. And so if anybody has had those kind of experiences, you know, we all go through the same thing in that we may have personality changes. We may have, you know, the same type of integration process. A lot of times we come in, the first thing that happens, we get a divorce. We change our jobs. We move to a different location. Our personalities are different. Everything we eat and do is different. The music, the way we dress, everything is different. And when I found out that there were other people having that experience, I was like, okay, now I can write the book. because then it's like those experiences kind of validate my experience. And then I invited 8 other people who were in the realm of science and consciousness to also contribute to that first book. And after that came out, then everything began to open up. And I started working with lots of different groups. And then I formed what's called the Conscious Awakening Network, where I have different channels where people have a variety of different shows. They're all spiritually inclined, cosmic expansion, spiritual growth type of information is provided. We have YouTube channels. We're on Roku, Amazon, Apple TV. We have a plethora, about 40 different platforms that we're on. And so for me, collaboration makes total sense when you're talking about, well, first off, it just makes total sense for me because that's unity conscious minded, but it also makes sense in the fact that maybe what I'm speaking doesn't resonate with somebody, but if you're telling something, maybe they'll resonate with your frequency, because we are, within our holographic field, we all have our own frequency base. And so the more voices that we have, the more people we can affect. And that's the only reason that I, started the Conscious Awakening Network. And literally at this point, everything I do is because my collective is like, yep, this is what we're doing. Yep. And so I tell people a lot of times they're like, oh my God, how do you get all that stuff done? And it's like, I am so lazy. I just sit back and let my collective do it because I have learned if I try to do it, the personality, it is not going to go the way it should go. So it's a lot easier just to let them move through me. And then everything just happens seamlessly. Even though you might say, oh my gosh, that was the biggest flub up. They're like, that's the only way we could move you into this direction. I'm like, oh, okay. And so I've learned, you don't take anything personally. You just go with the flow and everything happens exactly the way it's supposed to.
Yeah. So much there. Beautiful. I love it. Well, and I can't wait to read your books because, I haven't really studied that much about the walk-in kind of phenomenon. I know it's real, but just everything you just shared about all the different ways that it can happen and the experiences. So in terms of working then so you've got Angelics, Pleiadians, Sirians, Arcturians, Lyran, Mantis, Andromedan. And so I have all of that as well and more. And so how do they then come through you? Are you channeling them? Are you just channeling their energy? Are they just giving you information?
Well, if you remember earlier, I said that I'm part of a collective. And they too are part of that collective. So if this is the oversoul, all of these individual fingers can be multidimensional expressions, but they've all come home. This could be earth times and angelic times and Arcturian, whatever. And then they all came back to where they were in pure consciousness. And then when we melded, I'm still asking, okay, so how much of this collective energy that I'm tapped into is my oversoul energy, and how much is it from the collective that was on the crystalline grid? And they're like, it's all the same. I'm like, no, I need to know. I'm human. Give me a number. Give me an answer. And they're like, doesn't matter. It's all the same. It's all the same. And so from that, however, when I do certain types of healing work, I have a Arcturian team that comes through, and they literally will take over the session and they do the work. They tell me what they're doing. I'm telling the client what's happening. And we were proceeding in that direction one day when all of a sudden they stopped working and they stepped back. And I'm like, well, that didn't take very long. What's going on? And then I had Angelic, Andromedan, and another Arcturian to step forward. And they began to work on the body. And they said, now we're going to teach you about the ley lines. And I'm like, well, we call those meridians, well, what do I know? And I said, well, we call those meridians. And they're like, no, we're going to teach you about the ley lines of the body. I'm like, yeah, that's what we call meridians. It's been studied for thousands of years. And they're like, Sheila, we're going to teach you about the ley lines. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm standing there and I'm watching, and they began to teach me this new healing modality. And then I've taught it to a few other people and stuff. But basically, these ley lines they start at the earth and they go up and they connect us out to every living being. They're connecting us front and back. They have different energetic frequencies and bands. And, that I could talk about forever too. But anyway, so I worked with them. And then when, I guess it was about, I don't know, several months ago, I was just in a hotel room. And when I woke up, I was speaking light language. And I couldn't stop speaking light language. And I was speaking light language in the shower. And I was speaking light language in the hall very softly, but it would not stop. And I'm thinking, someone's going to call down to the front desk and say, there's a psychotic lady wandering the hall. But thank God they didn't. Her and her little doggy, but they didn't, thank goodness. Even when I was eating, I could not stop for like 24 hours.
Wow.
And at the end of that, I was told I am Elder Mother Tiamu. I am Andromedan, and she is part of my collective also. But she's like a future aspect of the collective, because you have to remember there is no time on the other side. And so she will come through, and not only do we do healing, but her big thing is to work on the DNA of the body. And in working with the DNA, I've gone from the idea that the soul is, first I thought the soul was located in the solar plexus area just because of the operating system that the solar plexus has and the conscious intelligence. And it's like, no, that doesn't make sense. It has to be behind the heart, the brain. And I'm asking my collective, and they're just kind of like, they didn't tell me anything. They were no use. They were of no use, and I was like, come on, just tell, But then as I've started working with the DNA, and because of such life force that's there, I feel like the soul kind of comes in as this mist, and it just permeates the entirety of our being and anchors into the DNA of the body, with a great amount located behind the heart. Okay. And so, Tiamu has she hasn't said that, but in working with her, and because when we anchor, when we heal, when we work to do repair work out here in the holographic field, then when we connect people all the way out to the cosmos and into various intellectual levels that's located there, it comes from the telomeres at the very end of the DNA. And it's kind of like it's pulled all the way up and out into the universe. So our telomeres actually serve as little antennas. And so those are primarily the energies, and I call them their energies, but the collective members that have identified themselves. Now they have said, since I have to have a number, they're like, there's 128 aspects that you're working with right now. That's really not even a lot, but that's what they're saying. All of us have so many guides, angels, beings that's around us every day that we can tap into. The only difference is mine is coming from here through with the collective, because, I do have guides that are around me, and I have the angelic supports, but when I do my work, these beings are coming through the collective energy. And so, I was told that originally I came from the angelic realm, and that my name is Nawaila, and that the collective is called the Yahni. So if I ever changed my name, which I don't have any plans, but if they ever lead me to change it, it would be Nawaila Yahni, because that identifies the individual frequency of my soul as being part of this collective energy that I am. And so they're like, again, it's kind of like, well, we're giving you these names, but the reality is it's a frequency band, it's an operational system in and of its own. And so it's really interesting if you say Nawaila and Sheila and
Mhm.
Yahni and Seppi, I
Yeah.
still have the same vibrational frequencies and resonance in my current earth name as
I
I
feel
do in my
that.
spiritual vibration.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah. Totally. I totally felt that as you said those
Yeah.
words.
Yeah. And so, sometimes I'll have, like different visitations, like, very prominently. I love to work with Archangel Michael. He rocks on. He's not part of my collective. I'm just fanboying, fan clubbing. It's like, I love Archangel Michael. Come and help me, and I just have different beings that will show up that I end up working with and integrating in however, because again, remember I said I'm very lazy. It's like, oh, can you help me with this? Oh, can you help me? I'm a really good delegator and they're the best. They
I've
are the best.
I've become more like that because I'm like, team, whoever's in charge of this aspect, help me.
That's right. Here, it's all yours, And they'll show me the outcome and I'm like, hey, I can do that. You just have to get me there. You just have to open the doors. You just have to, and they're like, that's great. That's what we want to do.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, we are actually, unfortunately, running out of time for the show. We're going to have you back on.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, what? We just started talking.
So, in our last little bit of time here, like, okay, so if people want to work with you, then how, like, who would come to you as a client, and do you offer those services? And
I
then, and then where do they find you?
Yeah, they can go to my website, SheilaSeppi.com, SheilaSeppi.com. They go under services and you'll see all the different services that I offer. You'll also see my books that are there. So check those out. And, also if people are interested, if they have, if they're feeling called to contribute to the world, also get a hold of me. You can email me there too and just let me know that you're interested, because it could be that they might be a content provider. So if you're interested in that realm, you can go to the consciousawakeningnetwork.org.
Okay, perfect. And are you on socials? What socials, if people want to follow you?
I am. You can go to my Facebook, but the reality of it is I've been putting so much effort into the Conscious Awakening Network and promoting everybody else. I haven't been promoting my own work.
Okay. Okay. Well, I am just, so you and we had just recently had become Facebook friends, and then we were part of the ET diplomacy conference together.
Mhm.
And so I'm just so thrilled to have another Soul Tribe member now.
Yes, me too.
Yeah, I thank you so much for being willing to come on the show. and I can't wait to see what happens as we move forward.
Me too. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's
Yeah,
an honor to be here.
I love it. And so for those of you listening or watching, always thank you for being here with me. And I will see you next time on Connection to the Cosmos. Aloha.